Hello, students, families, parents, staff members of Glooskap Elementary, and anyone else who's watching. Welcome to part 2 of our video series, We Are the Storm. Part 2 I'm calling the Haze and the Daze that is caused by a lightning-fast glaze. So, yesterday we set some of the background to the story up. Sometimes I will refer to something from part 1, but if you have not watched that, go ahead, find it on my Facebook page if you'd like to watch it. Basically, it's just a review of what happened last year. I want to talk about why the government felt the need to commission the Glaze report, who Dr. Glaze is, and why the speedy turnaround and the amazing timing of the release of the report, or even better, the timing of this February 27th opening of the House. Okay, so the government legislated the teachers into a contract. But they didn't get all that they wanted. Remember yesterday when I said that what they really want is to claw back those 30 years of negotiations. Their goals are, I'm just going to say it, their goals are to destroy our union and all other unions. And also, they're highly motivated to corporatize the education system. And as we lay out the videos, you'll see that really that's what this is all about. They have to figure out a way to do that. They talked a lot about it in the press, how they were going to make things better in the classroom. But if we really think about it and are honest, many schools and classrooms had to fight for support to cover the cap. There are still many classrooms that are over the cap. The caseloads are absolutely insane for counselors and school psychologists and SLPs. They're unmanageable. So even though their $20 million council to improve classroom conditions were meeting and making some recommendations, there still was no significant change for our students. So they didn't really solve any problems by legislating us. But they weren't trying to solve problems. They weren't trying to make school better for our students. Again, their goal is to destroy the unions and to get business into education. There are major lobbying money behind both of those actions. But more about that in later videos. So they commissioned Dr. Glaze to come from Ontario to Nova Scotia and examine the state of our education system and report back with recommendations. This was going to cost the taxpayers $75,000. Now some say the public wasn't supposed to know about that $75,000, but I think that the liberal spin people, they purposely released that number. That way, the public would say, well, when the report came out, well, they spent $75,000 of our money on this. They better do something with that report. They could justify the speed in which they had to act. Yeah, the liberal government, one thing we have to understand about all governments, but our liberal government in particular, they have a $10 million budget on communications, and very well trained and very smart people running that section of their government. Thank goodness we all have laptops and brains and can think critically, and we can make our own videos and try to get our own thoughts out there. They are skilled at manipulating the public discourse. Well, I guess we got to get armed with our own voices. So my first question is, why do we need someone from Ontario who has never lived in Nova Scotia, who has never taught in Nova Scotia, to examine our school system. Last year, we had hundreds of people go to the Law Amendments Committee that are on the front lines of the education system. They gave lots of information, lots of solutions that the government could have examined that data. They could have looked at that. They could have interviewed all those people and found out what's wrong in our system, and it wouldn't have cost them $75,000. Isn't their perspective more relevant than an outsider? I think so. You know, the answer is simple. Why they didn't. None of the people at Law Amendments Committee were going to say what the government wants them to say. They're not going to say what the government needs them to say. They would hire someone whose suggestions would align with their agenda. They went out and handpicked someone whose suggestions would align with their agenda. They spent your $75,000 to hire someone who basically would say what they're already trying to say. They're going to weaken the union and bring corporate structure and control to the education system. They're going to centralize it. That's what they wanted the report to say, and that's what the report did say. So who is Dr. Haze Glaze? Well, her resume is very impressive. Look her up. Look up her bio. She has worked with many governments before. She has published many books. She has many degrees and is a member of the Order of Ontario. Like, she's a very impressive woman. She has written many other reports for many other places. And the recommendations and results of her reports and findings are surprisingly similar to what they were in Nova Scotia. The basic premise of each report is that students are underachieving, which we will talk about in later videos, and you will see that's not true. Teachers are not able to do their jobs effectively. Well, you know, we know that teachers need help. That is true. But the way Haze Glaze wants to go about it, by making sweeping changes to centralize the decision-making powers and implement a business model, is the only way to solve the problems, according to Haze Glaze. Every report Dr. Glaze has written follow these ideas. I don't believe that Dr. Glaze was chosen to look at our system because she was going to have fresh eyes or because of her great qualifications, because she is a very qualified person. I believe she was chosen because the government already knew what she was going to say. She and her report are smoke screens. Dr. Glaze and the report are propped up to the public so that the Liberals can say, this expert has these findings. So we must act, and we must act quickly. But really, the Liberals could have written this report themselves. In fact, it is remarkably similar to a report that Karen Casey wrote years ago. They have this agenda and have had this agenda for a very long time. They've been trying to make the changes outlined, these 11 priorities that they're going to start with. They've tried to make these changes for a very long time. This is another way for them to get into our contract and rip things out. It is unconstitutional. It's going to cost Nova Scotia a lot of money. They're going to ram it through no matter what the cost to the system is, to the teachers or to the children. Dr. Glaze was hired in mid-October and was given 2 months to examine the whole of Nova Scotia public system. I'm just going to say it, that is an impossible task to do if you are actually trying to find the problems and thinking about solutions. But if your findings are predetermined and you already know what you're going to say, then I guess it's a nice 2-month vacation in Nova Scotia that you're also getting paid for. You know, so that's a little bit of background on the report. Why was it, why 24 hours after the report was released to the public did that government say we want to act on all 22 of these recommendations, but we're going to start with these 11? They never immediately act on a report like that swiftly. Why mid-year would they do that? You know? Why would they say we're going to have this all done by August 1st? And why are they calling the House back at the end of February? Well, I have some ideas about that, right? So the citizens of Nova Scotia that don't agree with the report and want to get their voices out there, maybe with radio ads or TV ads, you know, they can't do that because the Olympics is on and all of the advertising space is gone. So we're left to social media, and we're left to blogs, and we're left to other things. Well, now it's up to us to get the word out, because we're going to have to use every citizen in Nova Scotia to get the word out and pressure these guys to stop what they're doing. You know, they announced that they're going to cut all the elected school boards, right? First of all, how can they do that? We elected those school boards. How can they just say, you know what, you're done? That's a question I want answered. Also, then they said, but you know what, elected school boards, we will pay you till the end of your term, which is 2020. If you're going to pay them until 2020, why don't we take the time with the rest of the report until 2020 and see and really examine what these changes would actually mean to the system? Why are you trying to push everything through by August 1st? The citizens need to know that answer. Why, if these are so beneficial, what's the rush? So stay tuned tomorrow for part 3. Part 3, we're going to go over the 22 recommendations of Dr. Glaze's report. The 11 that they are saying is a priority versus the 11 that they are saying put on the back burner. And I worry that the 11 on the back burner, they're hoping we'll forget about those 11. And I'll try to make the connections for us so that you can see the 11 on the back burner don't really fit their agenda. The 11 on the back burner might have a positive effect for the kids in the classroom. Anyways, I really appreciate you all for following, and I just want to say, together we are the storm. Let's work together to make this province what it should be, which is amazing. Thank you.